So I want to review the episode Pretty Boy Flizzy, and to me, this is like the climax of the Thomas Dubois character. Because, in this episode, he actually becomes more of an alpha, and there's a lot of talking points of this episode. So, Pretty Boy Flizzy is actually played by Michael Jordan. He does a really great job with this episode. And also, the other thing about it is that, he plays this rapper named Pretty Boy Flizzy, and he consistently gets into jail. So, one thing I kind of like is that, in the beginning, you kind of see him as just that typical, like black rapper that always goes to jail. That's always like a bad boy. And then you actually learn through the episode that actually all that stuff is staged. Like, he wants to be entertaining to women. He always wants to stay relevant. And that's kind of like true about rappers, or even like rappers like Kanye West. That's always attached to a certain form of controversy just to stay on top of things. And, it's just, it's unfortunate that people do that, but it's also kind of like what we talk about white run media. And it does two things. Like, it makes him relevant. It makes him sell albums. It makes him, just the king of women because of that bad boy persona. But it's also doing what media wants, is encouraging young black men to see that and be like, oh, I want to be like Pretty Boy Flizzy, and actually get arrested and thinking that that's going to get me bitches and everything like that. The media to prison industry complex. And then also too with Thomas Dubois' character, that again, he's in a toxic relationship. Like, his wife wants him to be more of an alpha. And I think that, she's also somebody that's a little bit, just wanting that alpha type of male, but also like that toxic. Maybe she needs him to be more of like a dom in the bedroom, like giving spankings and doing stuff like that, really, So, it's bad that she kicks him out, and then, Tom kind of takes it. And I think that that's kind of like the thing about. And I like what Pretty Boy Felicity says about both Tom and Sarah, that they're both boring people, and she doesn't have self-respect, because I think that's very, very true. Like, Sarah also has a bunch of insecurities, but I really think that the attention is on Tom, because obviously Tom is more of a dynamic character through the series, but also, too, that definitely, there's more camera time on Tom, because he's really like because he's the main character of this episode. So, I don't think, like, if you dissect it, like, Sarah also has a lot of those issues as well. Like, she's definitely, I think, in a sense, as I said, somebody who's in her 40s, having a midlife crisis through trying to be a black media obsessed woman, or just like, into like that young into that hip hop movement, because that's more for youth and whatever. So she's trying to attach to that and attach to men like that, so she can feel younger, because she's actually, a woman that's becoming older. So I really think that that's there, really. So, Tom and Pretty Boy Flizzy, they actually work with each other, because, well, at first Tom doesn't want to take his case, because, he has a lot of ethics. Like, I'm not going to attach myself to a woman beater and somebody with all those controversies. But I think that definitely the thing about it is that he does do it in the end because he's insecure. He wants to make sure that his wife is that, he can do whatever to kind of like save his marriage. But I also think that the other thing that I see with Tom that I like in this episode is that without Pretty Boy Flizzy, he knows how to walk out of his wife when she acts the fool at the table, and then also just like, how to just like curse at Robert for not being there for him. Like, there is a sense of, even though it's out of his character, that we root for him as an audience, because he knows how to express his feelings. Like, he's almost like that episode when Butters goes to Hawaii and he curses at everybody, even like Eric, and puts people in their place. So I do think that, with Tom, he's probably the most charismatic character in the whole show as far as character development goes, because he goes from a beta to really like an alpha, or just like an alpha in his own way, which is what we need to do. Just don't like change yourself to somebody that's dangerous. And also the other thing about Tom is that I do think that another thing that happens at the table, his wife gets drunk, and then she's kind of like cursing and other things like that, and he leaves. And, it's kind of bad that he goes out drinking, because maybe that's going to be his future, and that's the future of the relationship, that he solves it by alcoholism. and that's going to lead to a bunch of problems. But I also think that because he is an alcoholic, I do think that he's going to get more into that. But I do kind of think that another thing that we kind of see is that you know that he Pretty Boy Flutes encourages him to go to man camp, so he smokes like a cigar that makes him hallucinate. Maybe it's like weed or LSD or a mix of a bunch of stuff, but he does a bunch of dangerous behavior. So I think that it's another thing about, I think what Magruder's trying to warn people is that there's a lot of times that people solve relationship issues by either being a toxic alpha or toxic masculinity, but also getting into alcoholism or drugs or cheating, and that's also true in hip hop culture because you have more access to that stuff. And when I first saw this episode in the 2000s, I was laughing my ass off when I saw Tom go back to the robbery, the place where the robbery took place, because I assumed that he was going to do the exact same thing Pretty Boy Flizzy was going to do. He's going to like rob the place on drugs because he got it in his head that that's the way to be to get what he wants. But I also think that that he realizes that it's all staged, and that's also true with like a lot of crimes. And even like when you saw like the episode with Gangsterlicious, there's always a sense that if you look at the videos, there's a lot of stage stuff, and that can also be with crimes and whatever. There's always like the stagedness because they want to make sure, because they want to like portray this rapper as this type of person, and then get this point across really. And then also it helps Pretty Boy Flizzy sell albums, so why not encourage that type of behavior? So and then the last scene is that they have a fight, and Pretty Boy Flizzy instigates it. So I do think that it's kind of like a hurrah for Tom because we kind of feel happy that he stands up to his wife. But I also think that there's a warning within this episode of a dangerous warning of saying that, sometimes, people have to overcome their insecurities and be happy with the relationship that they're in. Like Sarah is in Woodcrest. She has a daughter. She has a really great life. She should be happy with that instead of dating like a man that's in and out of jail, that just talks inappropriately, that slaps her and puts her in her place, like you see Pimping Slip Back and Courage. So she almost has to kind of understand that if she wants an abusive relationship and thinks that that's a way to feel young and youthful by dating those types of men, it's not going to turn out well for her. It's going to turn out very, very bad for her. And I also will say that I like the ending with them having the fight, and it should have ended with Sarah carrying Tom carrying Sarah to the bedroom, and that's that. I really hated how they had him trip and fall, because I kind of said that ruined the episode, because you took him from like, Tom, you're finally have your relationship together. Let's give you a comical ending. And I think that maybe after that, when I was younger, when I watched that, they didn't have sex. She's kind of like, oh, well, you're either nerdy or you're old man with a broken back or whatever. So I kind of felt that was almost like, that was almost like somebody getting their medal, and then the medal falls in a rain gutter, and then they can't retrieve it. Or somebody goes on Cake Boss. They make this ultimate cake. Somebody does this ultimate cake challenge, and then you see like the next scene, a dog's like eating their cake or whatever. It takes away from the umph of the episode. And that's kind of like what you see a lot in season 4, is that a lot of these episodes are spoofs and parodies. And this may be one of the best episodes of season 4 because this has a lot of strong character development, but that ending fucks it up, and they should know better than that. They didn't need that. They should have just had Tom, just get what he wanted. Just Tom, just bang Sarah, end the episode, and that be that, really. But they didn't do that. So I do think that this is a great conclusion to the Tom character, but it also kind of shows that if they really cared, they could also make satirical points, but they could also like mix it with character development. And this was ultimately like, I think, a good send off to Tom's character. And that was kind of like maybe what I wanted in season 4 or even season 1, or is like send offs, but I'm really happy with this. And I will kind of say too that I think that if they spent like 20-30 minutes on Sarah, just Sarah alone and her character development, that would have been kind of interesting. Or even like Jasmine, because they don't really kind of like do that. In the first season, you kind of still see a little bit of Jasmine and Huey's relationship, but you really, really don't see like Sarah as her own person. But I do think that, as I said, Sarah has a lot of insecurities, but you kind of see her more as somebody that wants a black man and wants a stereotypical black man because maybe she wants to connect with, maybe she's like an older woman that wants to connect with something that reminds her of her youth. And also with the way that she dresses, like even though she dresses like a secretary a little bit, she also has like a bonnet, so she tries to look young and cute. So there's always that play, I think, of her trying to look like, maybe like a sorority girl, but also having something that makes her look youthful. So there's always, I think, with her chasing that fountain of youth type of thing, So there's definitely a lot of talking points about her character, but I do think that, like with how they developed Tom through the series, of being a beta to an alpha in his own way, that still is going to like hold down his family, whatever. I think that they did him very well with the whole series, except for that ending where he falls down the stairs, where they kind of just turn him into comic relief. All right, that's all I got to say about this episode.